The ballad of IDW publishing has been going on for like 7 years now, and it's been so sad. They're just losing money and always firing people, and you always wonder just how bad are things at IDW? How bad can the comic books get? You know, are they still losing money? They're not really doing a lot of entertainment anymore. It looks like the sales on IDW's TMNT line are actually through the roof. Things should be getting better. It's not like they're undercharging for TMNT, The Last Ronin, Re-Evolution. It's an $8 comic book. I think TMNT #1 was also like a $6 comic book. Like, they have the most expensive comic books by far on the market. And that's not hyperbole or anything. I actually have the proof. I do the solicitation analysis on the Patreon. I do one for DC, one for Marvel, and then I do one for any books, and I cover Image, Dark Horse, IDW, and Boom. And I have the average prices for all their books in November. The average price of a DC book, $477. Average price of Marvel, $470. The average price of an Image comic, $418. The average price of a Dark Horse comic, $468. The average price of a Boom Studios comic, $518. And the average price of an IDW book, $571. They are, heads and tails, without a doubt, the most expensive comic book publisher out there. They should be turning a profit by now. They've been talking about, we're going to turn the corner in 2021. And then it's like, we're going to do it in 2023. And they've never turned the corner, and things are only going to get worse. And if you're a fan of IDW comic books and their licenses, you know, they do have TMNT. That's a big one. They've got Star Trek. They've got Sonic the Hedgehog. It sounds like they're losing My Little Pony and a couple of others out there. They don't have a lot of them anymore, but they do have some really important ones, most specifically TMNT. Things are about to get far worse because they cannot stop losing money. Remember, they were going to be profitable 3 years ago. Never happened. IDW Media Holdings is continuing to downsize with its co-publisher, no longer with the company. After another big quarterly loss in its fiscal Q2 ending April 30, the company lost $901,000 in the quarter, a big improvement from the $1.9 million loss a year ago, but still a hefty amount. IDW co-publisher Mark Doyle and book trade marketing manager Holly Atchison are no longer with the company. According to their LinkedIn profiles, Doyle joined the company in February of 2021 as editorial director originals after 15 years at DC Comics, and was promoted to co-publisher along with Tara McCrillis in May of 2023. McCrillis was promoted to president of publishing operations in April of 2024. So despite losing money quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter and always saying, we see profitability right around the corner, they're still losing money. How is this happening? And they're firing everybody. Anybody that's competent or has an idea what it takes to produce a good comic book, your ass is God. If you're Mark Doyle and you're the Batman guy that you were brought in to create these original ideas because you had no IP to farm out, you know, become a media company, you're God because you probably cost too much money. If you're Jamie S. Rich, you're God because you cost too much money too. And they're just like keeping the most incompetent people like a Heather Ontos around because they do not care about the quality of the books. They just need to get their financials in order, which they've been promising to do essentially for over 5 years at this point. Just how bad is it getting? Sales were actually up 4% to $5.7 million for the quarter, with increases in direct market revenue, basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics, direct-to-consumer sales, and increased retail exclusive orders, offsetting increases in book returns and discounts, and declines in book market sales and digital revenue. There were profitability improvements in both of the company's segments, with the entertainment segment operating loss declining from $473,000 in Q2 2023 to $80,000 in Q2 2024, on negligible sales of $95,000 total, in operating losses in publishing segment declining to $813,000 from $1.455 million in Q2 2023. Savings are coming from expense reductions, which continue. And I'm sure you figured out by now, expense reductions means firings, layoffs, getting rid of the competent people that you have so you can bring in cheaper, less competent people to replace them. And you're like, well, at least sales were up 4%. You know, we're talking in the millions. That must be a lot of money. I don't think so. I think it's more like $24,000 was the increased revenue that they had for the quarter. And their revenue was $5.7 million. So Not exactly flowing with the money when it comes to the revenue, but we do know that trade sales are down. There's a little bit of struggle going on there. They're basically pulling out almost wholeheartedly out of the entertainment segment, i.e. Winona Earp and Lock and Key and stuff like that. But even there, they lost $80,000 on sales of $95,000. Like that's pretty wild. Like, I don't know how they continue to operate. They just continue to lose money and money and money, despite overcharging people to such a degree on these TMNT books. The Re-Evolution stuff is $8 an issue. It's the worst value in all of comic books. I don't care if you like it. It's fucking ridiculous. Go read Spawn. That son of a bitch is $3. You know what I mean? We're going to be getting Incredible Hulk 800 in the not too distant future. It's going to have more pages than Re-Evolution, and it's going to be $2 cheaper, and it's Incredible Hulk, and it's produced by Marvel, a much bigger company. These guys, like, I don't understand how they can, like, price gouge people on TMNT books to this degree and still be losing money after firing so many people over the last several years. They just keep firing. And obviously Mark Doyle is gone and JB Rich is gone, but you still have Heather Antos, who must be really, really cheap. But they do need some new leadership, and we have an idea of who that new leadership is going to be. IDW is rehiring Bobby Curnow as the new editor-in-chief of IDW Publishing, replacing Jamie S. Rich. Bobby Curnow previously worked at IDW from 2010 to 2022 as an associate editor, then editor in 2013, group editor on TMNT books, including The Last Ronin from 2017 to 2022. He was the editor-in-chief of new publisher Magma Comics with fellow former IDW editor Denton Timpton as founder most recently. And I love how they throw like he was in charge of TMNT when The Last Ronin came out. Well, first of all, that was a Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird idea that they ran with Tom Waltz and had almost zero oversight from IDW, including Bobby Curnow, except for maybe spell checking the book. I don't think they were taking a lot of creative insight. But we also have to remember at that time, he's the one that put Sophie Campbell on TMNT and started her 50-issue horrendous run that absolutely tanked sales on the mainline TMNT book. And certainly he has some experience with TMNT. And from what I'm told, they had to jump through a lot of hoops and pay a lot of money to keep that license. And they're going to be doing a lot of TMNT books. We're getting TMNT, we're getting Last Ronin, we're getting Saturday Morning Adventures, we're getting Mutant Nation, and there's a fifth one out there, I believe. And we're going to be getting more TMNT comic books than you can possibly imagine. So I kind of understand them going out there for Bobby Curnow, who has experience with TMNT, and bringing him back to be the new editor-in-chief. But you also have to remember, Bobby Curnow's the one who was like, fucking Sophie Campbell, there's some talent there. Maybe we can turn the TMNT and put them on the back burner and turn it into a mutant trans allegory story, and we can see Jenica start a band. And what it's like to try to date within the weird mutation underworld trans allegory community that's going on there. And this is the dude that brought that to the table. So not expecting much. Now you might be wondering, why would they bring Bobby Curnow back? And what's interesting is he was very adamant when he left IDW that he fucking quit. He never wanted to work there again. So Magma Comics might not be doing so great, and they must have been losing a lot of money. Maybe he needed some job stability. But this is why all this is happening. Why Doyle's out, why Rich is gone. Certainly we've seen the Hasbro license fully vacate. We saw them lose the Star Wars license, all this kind of stuff. They had to pay out the ass to keep the TMNT license. It sounds like they overpaid for Star Trek too. But this is what it all comes down to. The rumor is IDW CEO Davide Jonas wants a return to an older, safer IDW that will follow budget plans and get the job done. An apparent issue under the leadership of Jamie S. Rich and Mark Doyle, who are both now gone from IDW. Jonas is looking for a pre-Nachi Marsham IDW with no more spending money for bigger name talent. So if you weren't enjoying Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzing on Star Trek, and you weren't enjoying Christopher Cantwright well on Star Trek, and you weren't enjoying Sophie Campbell on TMNT, and you weren't enjoying all the other no-names that Heather Antos has brought to the table, and all these terrible writers, and you were like, well, at least they're going to have good quality talent since they're charging so much for their comic books. No, this dude does not like comic books. This is the son of the dude that basically was the main investor in IDW and eventually ended up taking over the company, named his son Davide Jonas, the CEO. I believe he's the head of the board for IDW. Howard Jonas, I believe that's his name. And this dude obviously doesn't like comic books. He doesn't understand talent. He just understands the bottom line, and he wants to cut costs, which makes sense because they have been losing so much money for so many years, quarter after quarter. Loss. That's all they kind of do. They're always, we're eyeballing profitability soon, and it never seems to happen. So he wants to get the costs under control. Apparently, Jamie Rich and Mark Doyle were spending far too much on talent to bring in new creator-owned ideas so they could build up their IP if they ever want to become a media company, which is, I think, the big play that they want to do. But we're going to be cutting costs, and that's why you have the competent people gone, and you have the people like a Heather Ontos in there because she's likely the cheapest senior editor in the history of the world, maybe the cheapest group editor in the history of the world. She's in charge of all licensed product. But this dude is going to be cutting costs, and that means talent. If you haven't looked at IDW books lately, not a lot of talent there to begin with, especially the artists. Expect all those rates to go down. But the problem is you will never increase your sales without better creators and better stories, and you'll never be able to get your hands on licenses like Hasbro or Star Wars Saturday Morning Adventures and stuff like that. Or even remember the Marvel action books? They were like the all ages Marvel books that they were supposed to be creating that were so bad. You'll never be able to get stuff like that back without good creators unless you just go out and pay and overpay so badly on it. It's not even funny that you'll never be profitable, which is basically what it looks like they've done with TMNT. So if you want to know what's going on with IDW and how bad it's got, they're proper fucked. That's the best way I can describe it. If you appreciate the honesty that I'm providing to the comic book industry, pointing out a lot of the failings, a lot of the successes as well, and you want to support my mission over here on Think Critical YouTube, the place to go is Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. There you will get all the freebies and bonus extras for supporting us that you could ever imagine. Over 40 hours of new videos and podcasts available there. I hope to see you there very soon.